resource, our idea of resources is a four-tiered thing. Chatur means four, Daya is capacity. It's funding, knowledge, networks, and volunteerism. That these are the four kinds of resources that need to be working together to actually make something meaningful. And the way we work as a grant-making organization is we consciously develop a non-hierarchical relation model with everyone that's working, including the organizations, the local organizations that we support. As part of that, we are all part of a community of enablers within social movements. So we as Indonesia for Humanity is just one element in this community. Now, we as a grant-making organization, we receive funds from donors, but we also raise donations from the public. And the donations that we raise from the public very much built on our networks in the social movement. So people who feel that they are part of a community that's trying to bring out change. In the process, and of course, when we have the funding from donors, there's a very clear requirement to do monitoring evaluation in the way that they have developed whatever the model was. And usually these models are very expensive. They also require us working with experts who are paid very highly. And the only way we can pay the experts is because we have the donor money. But we also have funds that are supported by public donations and our own colleagues in social movements. And for that, we felt, and the donors usually just do evaluation for the projects they support. And in the meantime, we felt the need to really understand what are we doing, what is our impact, where are we going, and are we actually doing the kind of things that are relevant and that contributes to the mission that we have set ourselves on. And so we felt we needed to really find a different way, some way that, firstly, also because we're a small organization making small grants, we do not have the resources to set up a system that is high cost. We needed to create something that is that would work for us, which is an organization that wants to stay small. So this is one of the things that there's a slide that we share with the people that we engage with when we're introducing our methodology, is that we really felt an urgency to develop an alternative way to review our own work, and upwards accountability, which is a framing, a phrase that is mentioned in the Measuring What Matters, is extractive and reductionist. And actually, several of our friends who we have engaged in this methodology said that it's been so traumatic just to do the log frames and to quantify everything as if the quantification really means anything. So, there was, as we introduced our methodology, we were very surprised just how there's like a big sigh of relief among those that we engaged with, that, oh, we're going to do it differently. And where we actually focus on, as Barry had said, the idea of meaning. So our alternative, we call it pemaknaan. It's an Indonesian word. The root word is makna. It probably has Arabic roots. And makna means meaning. So basically what this methodology, and we call it a methodology, an approach, is a reciprocal process of dialogue that builds on contextual understanding, provides affirming recognition of the work of our partners on the ground, and engages in critical constructive observations regarding the efforts initiated by our partner organizations and their respective communities. The overall intention is to strengthen in a reflective and strategic ways the potential to achieve transformative change through social movements. So this is how we define what pemaknaan is. Again, it's focusing on meaning, and because we felt that we are on a mission of social transformation with our community of enablers, with our movements, and we need to understand where we're going and how we affirm ourselves, but also be self-critical in areas that need to be, need improvement. So the focus of our method, the pemaknaan, is not project implementation or whatever field. It's about the transformative capacity and the transformative capacity of the efforts on the ground, with the assumption that social transformation is a long and oftentimes painful journey of continuous struggles, so that it's not going to be focused on, okay, we gave you a grant to build something or do some one activity. We're not going to ask them about whether you did that activity or not. We have another process that does that. But here through pemaknaan, we want to engage through that support that we gave, the whole conversation about their journey and how to look forward and see what kinds of new thinking needs to happen. Who do we do this with? We do this with people we call pemakna. This is the role. Pemakna means the person who gives who facilitates the meaning, establishing meaning. And so the pemakna is a qualified observer mentor with good understanding of social, political, and economic dynamics in society, who champions justice, human rights, and ecological sustainability. But aside from all that, they also should be willing to function with independency and in the spirit of solidarity. Independency is important because we want them to be to ask critical questions, difficult questions in the dialogue. And solidarity is important because we're not going to be we're not treating them as experts that would be paid at a high rate. It's going to be their participation as pemakna in this process is an act of solidarity. They should be actively engaged in their respective communities and have individual expertise and interested in contributing to knowledge building from the ground towards social transformation. The strength of this approach stands on the subjectivity of the pemakna, who brings in a particular point of view and a specific understanding of complex realities that are relevant to strengthen the work of movements. So knowledge building, one of you were talking about learning and knowledge building. So this is definitely in line with your thoughts. The principles of pemaknaan are few but very important: that we celebrate our subjectivities, that there's interest in building collective spaces for shared learning, that we actually carry out a relational approach grounded in trust and mindfulness, and that we operate with an ethic of care. So here I'd like to just share with you the diverse subjectivities through the pemakna that have been involved in our methodology. We've done 3 rounds of it so far. And if you and you can see here the kinds of people that we have that has been joining us as pemakna in this process. There are community organizers, there's a novelist activist, human rights activist, independent journalist, social historian, feminist activist, academic activist, a documentary filmmaker, artist activist, and a professional consultant. So these are the people who've been involved. They're based in different parts of the country, and they are engaged in diverse movements. But this is the kind of diversity and richness of the subjectivity that we want to champion in this methodology. Just a quick sense of, we've been doing it in various parts of the country. This is some photos of the process on the ground. And here I just want to share with you, we tell them they're not asked to write a report. They're asked to write notes, and these are the titles, just for you to get a sense of how the subjectivity expresses itself in the title of the notes that the Pemakna makes. So one, for example, Pemakna that was working with an organization working on violence against women, was talking, her title was Magma Under the Gold Mountain, because there's actually a mountain there with gold, but she's bringing out the structural dimension. The second one, I won't go through all of them, but the second one is interesting because it's working in a post-conflict situation with deep trauma, and his note is entitled Victims, Exclusion, and Ghosts. Very intriguing. In fact, when we share some of these findings with our colleagues, everyone wants to read the document, and that's one of the things that we need to figure out, is how to use these documents while respecting the confidentiality of our partners. This is just some of the quotes that our Pemakna has mentioned when they're reflecting on their participation and carrying out the Pemaknaan methodology. So one said, this is an alternative to the lifeless model, and that oversimplifies our work. It prioritizes dynamics rather than comparing proposal to implementation. It's humanist. It's they appreciate that it's creating shared ownership. And one of them said, I truly felt challenged when I was given the freedom to actually be grounded in my own subjectivity. And so that was actually that kind of challenge others have said that as well. And these are some of the responses that our partners on the ground said as after they went through the Pemaknaan process. They're talking about having a comprehensive portrait of their whole district, a reminder of their journey and goals. One of them said that it was a healing reference. It was a healing process and knowledge, of course, and that the product, the notes, are, they said, will guide us for future conversations. So aside from a kind of a bilateral dialogue between the Pemakna and our local partners, we also facilitate dialogue among the Pemakna. So there's other levels of learning. But after this whole process ends, we actually have another layer of conversations, which where we are engaging with the wider our wider network in our movements, depending on what the issues are. And the whole idea there is that from these dialogues, bilateral dialogues, and the learnings, the cross learnings among the Pemakna, we are actually addressing some very key strategic issues that may be gaps in the way the movement is working. And so we want to use the findings and the learnings from this process to open a conversation that is raising difficult issues for, affirms the movement, but also raise difficult issues in terms of how we as a movement improve ourselves, because we are all operating under so many limitations and very complex contexts. So this is another level of learning. So this is my last slide. What do I mean? What do we mean by measuring is political? For us, Pemaknaan is political. It's a political choice, a political act, because it is a way for us to preserve our integrity and authenticity through language, by actually introducing new language on the methodology and process. That it is also a way for us to affirm and regenerate our movement's collective energy and autonomy. It is a way for us to liberate ourselves from ways and means that perpetuate our subordination and disempowerment. And it's a way for us to act on our determination to carve new spaces and modalities in the belief that a different world is possible. I end with a quote from Arundhati Roy: "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." Thank you.
It's still good afternoon. Yeah, Ogilideni speaking from Uganda. Wakiso.
Barry, you're muted. I'm unmuted. Sorry, thank you very much, Shanana. That was absolutely excellent and shows actually when you take the issue of measurement into your own hands and actually use it for what is a very powerful normative purpose, you know, the purpose of social transformation in favor of flourishing lives, you can actually really dig deep into your societies and come up with some really powerful ideas and concepts which we can all learn from. That's really, really good. I'm conscious of time, and I do want to get people another chance to talk. When we come back after the next session, I'd really like to hear from people who haven't had a chance to talk so far. But in the meantime, I'm going to shift, still in Asia, but Urgent Action Fund Asia, and Deepthi Menon, who is with us. And Deepthi, please tell us how you got involved in this and what are the kind of approaches that you're taking.
Thanks for that, Barry.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for that. And I do have a small presentation to share, although it's not about the method that we have followed. I would love to share the presentation, but I see that the host has disabled participant sharing. Is it possible for you, Eshban, to share my slides? If not, I could still talk through it.
Eshban, can you see this?
It's fine. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I've made you co-host, Deepthi.
Yeah, you're now.
Thank you.
Try again.
Thank you. Just trying that. Are you able to see this? I'm
Yes.
going to try and go on the slideshow. Yes. So give me a second. I need to. Oof. I don't think. Oh, I've lost the.
We can see your screen, our 3 learnings, Deepthi.
That's where it's stuck. Okay.
Oh.
Clearly Mercury is in retrograde. I wanted to start with a quote of bell hooks on why we went an alternative, why we decided to forge an alternative path to learning. When Urgent Action Fund Asia and Pacific was set up the conversation towards that was going on for a while, but when the activists, human rights defenders of Asia and the Pacific decided to set that fund up, one of the things I think that was critical was there was a sense of taking risks to set this fund up as a learning organization, where there could be a gathering of what does it mean to be a feminist rapid response fund. So while there were a lot of funders in the region that was supporting women-led organizations, I think the team that was thinking and conceiving of Urgent Action Fund for the Asia and Pacific regions were clear that there needs to be a strong learning anchor for that. And I think that's where the impetus to think of alternate approaches came in, because we realized that the ways that we were working was not really serving the needs of those we were working with. So that's the genesis of it. And that's where practitioners like me, we came into the picture. And we started thinking of what is it that we would like to do in this process. So we identified multiple approaches that within our team we knew. So there was Adrienne Maree Brown's emergent strategies. There was emergent learning, which was a new approach to being more curious. I don't think within the emergent learning sphere at that time, there was anybody who was trying to adapt it into a monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning framework. But we realized the, what do you say? We realized the adaptability of that emergent learning, the tools of emergent learning, and the thinking behind it that could give us, as a rapid response fund, the flexibility and the bandwidth to do things differently. So I'll set out a scenario for you, which was one of the founding reasons why we wanted to look at a different framework. So between the time that, say, we as a women's fund, so who are women's funds, for instance? Women's funds are those funds which are kind of intermediaries. There are the bilateral donors, the foundations, and we call them the donors. And so we are grantees of those donors, but we then become the donors for those community-led organizations or individuals that need that emergency infusion of funding to support them through times of need. So whether it's for their relocation, psychosocial assistance, legal aid, etc., that's the time that we come in. And the grant, the amount of grant that we give are very small, which basically means, so for say $5,000 is about the maximum grant that we offer at any given point of time. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's very difficult to set up a measuring and evaluation system that kind of stays, rigid, and then requires people who are in trouble, people who may not even have access to data, or even, a way to submit documentation to be able to send information and reports back to us and work with a certain kind of rigor. So we looked to redefine what could be rigor within the constraints that we work with. And going back to the example that I was mentioning, so very often it happens that in the process of putting a proposal to a bilateral donor to receive, say, funding for 3 to 4 years, we are basing our understanding of how the world that we will operate in and the communities that we serve based on that 0.0, that time of 0.0. But very often what happens is that by the time the money comes to us, crisis has changed. It's either compounded or it's, it's kind of mutated into multiple different ways, which basically means we also need the flexibility to be able to change our approaches. So when we say we are a fund that listens to communities, when we say that we are a fund that works with the constraints that the organizations or the individuals that we work with face, we had to create a system that adapts to it. This is where we decided to form our own alternate feminist meal approach, where accountability and learning was prioritized over monitoring and evaluation. And this does not mean that we were not collecting data. There were numbers, but the numbers were just a vehicle to tell the stories or the narratives that we wanted to emerge from the global south. And one of the first things we did was to negotiate with donors in global north to ensure that we had the flexibility to say our stories in the way that we figured was the best. So we did multiple experiments, big and small steps, worked with donors, said no to several donors. And I think that I recognize that also as a privilege, because we work as a part of a consortium, which allows us to have a certain amount of resources flowing into us. But being able to say no to donors that were inflexible about how we should report back was also a risk that we took. And once we started seeing the results of a storytelling which was anchored in the community, developed with the support of the community through learning sessions, through tools that actually went to making thinking more clear and visible, that's where I felt we started seeing success. To begin with, it was very difficult because the first lesson that we learned is we need to unlearn the ways of how we have been taught to run programs, understand what success means, how to evaluate progress within programs, because a lot of our programs were in their nascency, and it required a lot of community support and community ideation. And these processes never follow a donor timeline. These are processes that take its own sweet time. So for us to be able to understand where we are within each stage, also required a certain level of unlearning. And I think that's where we recognized it. Even before we start talking about developing a framework, a monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning framework, we needed to start changing within our team. So till we started changing within our team, we would never be able to say the story more cohesively or strongly for donors to have the trust and faith in us that the money that they are redistributing through us is going to the right communities. So I think for 3 years or so, we focused on building those rhythms of reflection, rhythms of sense making, rhythms of empowering team members to know that even team members who are working within the finance department had a say. So I think that unsiloing is one of the biggest successes we've had with this feminist approach, where it's not the job of just the monitoring and evaluation team to arrive at indicators and outputs and outcome measurements, but it became a collective responsibility of the team, where every team member was empowered to not just use the data to respond to donors, but also use that data to inform them about how they need to change or revise their programs. So the flexibility that we sought from donors, we started practicing within us so that we were not married to running programs in a certain linear way, but were willing to listen to the context, willing to listen to the communities and what they were asking and seeking from us to be able to change the way we were grant making, and not just grant making, even the way we were mobilizing resources, because we also had to then understand that very often communities don't just need dollars from us as a fund. They also need us to be conveners of spaces. They also need us to bring groups together so that there can be regional learnings that are fostered. So for us, we realized that when we call ourselves a rapid response fund, there are various aspects of our functioning which are very, I don't know if I should call it separate, but it's not restricted or constrained by what donors have given us money for. And as a fund, we work with a bevy of donors. So, to be able to create something that responds to the demands of different donors, and then also ensure that all of our staff members are empowered to be able to speak. I think those were the critical bits. With the emergent learning tools that we've been using, and I think for me, the measure of success of change within the team is how our team convenings have changed rapidly. How we have empowered more people to talk, how we have empowered a different kind of storytelling, where and the strength of documentation. So the rigor that we realized comes from the strength of the documentation, and like Nana was mentioning, the need mentioned within the donor communities and within our peer ecosystem to read. And because we were making learnings available as public good, we were not holding on to our learnings and saying we'll use this for our next round of grants proposal, and we have something that we would like to hold on to. I think the sharing as a resource, sharing our learnings as a resource for the feminist ecosystem to use, has also been a strength and an added advantage for us. We have been working hard at improving the way we document what we do, so that more people can adapt and adopt what we are seeing as our learnings, and also we've also been documenting what have been our challenges. So in case somebody else is able to circumvent those challenges that we faced, then we felt that that would be something that we are able to offer as a learning organization. So the 3 learnings, I don't know why my share screen isn't working, or I'm not sure if you all can see it. But the 3 learnings that I was trying to direct this group's attention to was, one is about how our approach helped us to make our thinking clear. And I have a link to how we have documented what our learning approach is. Jenny, if you could please put it into the link, I would be very happy to take any questions on it. Um, we intentionally worked on making our thinking clear and being able to communicate within the team about why we are doing what we are doing, who are we serving with this. With each event or with each program that we did, we ensured we did rigorous before action reviews and after action reviews. And in the case of some programs, retrospective after action reviews, which basically means that when a program has run for 3 years, we did an internal reflection of what we felt worked, what didn't, what were the kind of challenges that we faced, and what would have made the results different. So these are kind of the questions that we work with in our reviews. Apart from this, so I think putting in various levels of questioning and various levels of interrogation has been useful. So apart from doing this internally, we have already in our 6 years life cycle done 2 rounds of externally led reviews, and we call them reflective reviews of our work. And by reflective reviews, what we mean is we bring in representatives from different parts of our ecosystem to sit together and reflect on questions which are based on what is our arc of change, what our learning questions, our organizational learning questions were. And by doing that, by getting differing views and perspectives from different parts of our ecosystem, we were able to cobble together a holistic story that truly spoke about us. So it wasn't about, saying the story of what the team did and not really reflecting the communities, but actually trying to see how we as a fund, as a rapid response fund, was critical to the ecosystem that we work within. And we wanted to ensure that that happened within the periphery of, within the boundary lines of what we all collectively agreed was our feminist values. So every time we've done a review, which has then led to our next strategic plan framing, we have always tried to identify and collectively articulate what our feminist values would be, so that every work that we progress with can be measured against, does it stand true to the feminist values that we said we will work with? And having an articulated set of feminist values to work with has helped our team get stronger in terms of articulating our story as a fund as well. So to me, making that thinking clear and being intentional about making that thinking clear, creating transparent processes where people can speak up, and actually being able to interrogate even the power dynamics that exist within our organization, and being able to extend that to the communities that we work with. That, I think, has been critical. The second part, as I was mentioning earlier, was the unlearning that we had to do. There were people from very different kind of backgrounds, activists, lawyers, etc. And getting everybody to a stage of unlearning where they're receptive to new ways of thinking was a big challenge. But once that unlearning was unlocked, we realized the transformative power of, all of us sitting together and being able to produce something that is more than the sum of us as individual parts. So for us, that continues to be, a critical part. And the third was also interrogating, who are we speaking for? Where is the authenticity of the stories? Are we speaking on behalf of the communities, or are we offering them the opportunity to frame their own stories? And are we using our power and our networks and connections within the donor ecosystem to be able to change the way that they think? So in a way, I'm very heartened to see a lot of comments which actually say that, it's about collective unlearning. We need to have a way of educating donors. And I'm happy to say that within our ecosystem, within the feminist funding ecosystem, there is a lot of unlearning that's happening within donors as well. We currently have a bilateral donor who is in a partnership, a multi-year partnership with us, and that's Australia's GFCF, who's in a multi-year partnership with us as a partner and not a donor. And I remember being in a room with a lot of INGOs that GFCF funds, and them telling us that, you know, we INGOs never get this flexibility or, you know, this scope of working in a different way with the donor. But what I'm trying to arrive at is that it's about taking those risks. It's about being able to negotiate different ways. And it's about being able to give the donor the trust that, you know, working in a different way can actually be beneficial for them as well in terms of the stories that they want to share. Barry, I think you are constrained for time, so I feel I should stop here and then hand the mic back to you.
Okay, thank you, Deepthi. That's terrific. And I mean, what's really very clear from both presentations is that actually taking control is the first thing, is actually not allowing somebody to take away your power by imposing a system on you. That really what really matters is actually to take the issue of measurement or finding meaning, or however we conceptualize this, into your own hands and making it work for the transformative systems that you are actually setting up for yourselves. And that means there can be no blueprint about this. This is about creative energies. You quoted Adrienne Mary Brown and emergent learning, and that's the journey we're all on. There is expertise in this Zoom call. There's much of it. We've heard from so many people who have, you know, contributed to this discussion. I wish I could hear from all of you. We're all students, and we in the Global Fund feel that we are learning alongside the constituency. And it's not something we're going to come to a destination point and go, aha, this is the moment. Because as Nana pointed out, we are talking about disciplined subjectivity here. We are not talking about objectivity. And objectivity is one of the greatest traps that we can think we can actually get beyond who we are as subject. One glimpse at quantum mechanics and Schrodinger's cat will teach you actually that subjectivity is everything. We must, though, have disciplined subjectivity. Both of our presentations and all of the people who contributed said we need robustness, we need robust understanding. We need to firmly frame ourselves within a disciplined context that can actually share knowledge. It's taken more time than I thought. We've got 8 minutes left. What I'd like you to do now in the chat is to post what you think about this session, but most importantly in the context with where you'd like us to go next with this, because we're not giving up. This is not a one-off webinar where we all go home and do what we've always done. I mean, as Deepthi said, we've all got some unlearning to do as well as some learning to do. So that in a sense, this is a journey that we're all on, and we're inviting you into that journey because we can't do it on our own. And the field needs new collective energy around this to actually take it forward. So I may be able to take a few contributions if we've got time, but please do write in the chat, because we will go through the chat and we will analyze it. I'm going to turn over to Jenny just to say a little bit how this fits on the road from Bogotá, because this is one strand of a way in which we really want to transform the way the world works, to make it much more intentional around what would work towards flourishing lives, because we know that top-down agency does not work. We know that unleashing trust, capacities, and agency among ordinary people in communities is the way to go, and we need to go. And this is not about money so much as about a different kind of energy, a kind of energy of a non-egoic self, turning into a transcendental transcendental self that can begin to think about world in a different way, in ways, as we've heard from both Deepthi and Nana here, that they've reconceptualized who they are as actually communities in order to come to the conclusions they want. Jenny, would you like to briefly say about how you see this panning out forward, and then maybe we can take one or two contributions very quickly. I particularly would like to hear from people I haven't heard from so far. Jenny?
Sure, just quickly. Well, as Barry said at the Shift the Power Summit in Bogotá, the overarching question was, how do we move towards a system which centers a good society and flourishing lives for all, not how do we operationalize localization or how do we measure change, but really what is the normative purpose of our work? And I think the flows of this conversation have really sort of demonstrated that in the end, it's about people, stupid, right? It's not about it, it's for a purpose. And we know there are structures that we have to operate in, but actually this is really about moving a much larger agenda. So as the Global Fund for Community Foundations, we are very aware that many of our partners on our network are themselves building new systems. We've heard from 2 today, and that there's a real power of emergence, that people are developing ways of working and thinking that suit what it is they need to do. And how can we sort of start to aggregate those and build a body of emergent practice, while also, as Deepti just described, extending the invitation to donors. Donors are people too, sitting often in structures that they're trying to change. How do we build alliances and allyship with those who we think are on the same side, even if we acknowledge that we're operating against systems and structures that have not been equitable and structured in ways that really empower people? So this is something we're very committed to, both really kind of reaching into the hyper-local and building from that perspective up, but also building a kind of critical mass around which we can sort of start to build the system that we want. So this is a conversation that will be continuing. Barry? Yeah,
so you're all system builders, get it? You're all got a job to do. We're in this together. You know, we rejoice in our humanity, common humanity, and actually begin the work. Anybody got any, I mean, just love a sentence from people, just anybody volunteer to, you know, any top of the head thoughts while you're writing stuff in chat. Please do write stuff in chat. Yeah, Samar, over to you.
Hi, how are you all? I'm glad in a way that I can join in this great discussion. And it's very inspiring experiences that we heard from Indonesia and from India, from Deepthi, Nana and Deepthi. I love the fact that we're gonna be working together towards a collective community-based system, or like improving on what is being done and learning from each other. Like the example, the amazing example in Indonesia, in promoting the lives of the community and how to work within the context. For us, like in Palestine, it's very important to see all the variables that we live in and all the conditions, and how can you measure the impact of your project in a very different context. I mean, we're so different. I mean, each community has their own challenges, and how can we incorporate those into an evaluation system that is very friendly to the community? How can we measure resilience? How can we measure happiness? How can we measure that our project made a difference in people's lives? That's what I'm interested in, and it's a great start. Thank you, GFCF, for making this possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Samar. Greetings to all in Palestine. Anybody else like to make any comment briefly? No? Okay, that's Eshban. Would you like to just tell us about how we're going to go forward? Some people have got requested the slides from this. Are we going to make the recording available? Stuff like that. Eshban.
Yeah, indeed. We'll make the recording available, and I've also just shared in the chat my email for anybody that might specifically want the slides. And to also add that, you know, we've said previously that one of the issues when we talk about this work is really that collective confidence, and that collective confidence to measure differently. And a lot of it comes from watching and observing those that are attempting to walk this path. And we think that part of the journey to build that collective confidence is for all of us to talk about or to write on what are our own reflections along this journey.
Alex, could you
yeah, what are our own reflections along this journey? So I've shared my email in the chat, and the invitation to this group is please don't hesitate to reach out because we want to hear from the wider system on what's the kind of, where are they at this stage of measuring? And I would say that one of the initial first steps is that we want to broaden this work by documenting and articulating the reflections and journey of various people or various organizations that are measuring as we build this ship, as we sail it. I don't know if that feels like a starting point on how we could potentially move forward.
Thank you very much, Eshban. You put it very well. So write to Eshban if there are things you would particularly like to contribute to this process, because we've all got something we can contribute, and we need to be all at the table here. And the other thing is, if there are particular things you'd like help with or are struggling with, that maybe we can, you know, arrange a session to begin to kind of address that. We must function as a learning community where we're all taking charge of our own power, but within the respectful environment of actually working with each other to each bring our lives to a flourishing condition. I think it was, I can't remember whether it was Deepthi or Nana who said about breaking down silos. And that's one of the big enemies of this field, is we all live behind walls, and we need to break those down and take charge of our own power in a responsive way, in ways that actually help you to become you while we help others to become them. And we actually move together forward. So Karima, I'm just going to give the last word to you. You've just put your hand up.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not sure I wanted the last word. It's big responsibility here, but I just wanted to share. Well, first of all, I'm so inspired by what Kamala, Nana, and Deepthi shared, and recognize so much. Also from all the different sharings we initially heard. I just want to share a conversation I had with one of our partners who contributes financially to the processes that we co-facilitate and co-create here in Morocco. And it's a very, very big foundation in Europe. They have extraordinary assets. And we have a very small grant. However, we were in this recognition and appreciation session where we were co-reflecting, learning together, growing a shared understanding. And in a moment, he was very, I think in a very provocative moment, he said, well, after all, we are here to give you the money to do what you say you're going to be doing and what we expect. And I look at him and I say, do not diminish your value to the money you have.
Thank you. That's a very powerful thing to say, Karima. Thank you. And you always say so many wonderful things, but I think that's really important. The end, it doesn't come down to money. It comes down to heart. It comes to who we are and what kind of world we are creating together. So all of you, thank you for taking this time. Thank you for contributing to this discussion. We will be back in touch with you, and we look forward to the next one. And be well in the meantime, wherever you are in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.